Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone. My name is Marilam Frento. I'm the CEO of the Global Infrastructure Hub, and I'm really delighted and excited to welcome you to the finale of the InfraChallenge 2021. As you know, infrastructure is one of the least technologically transformed sector in the economy, and there is a global consensus that our industry needs innovation to solve big challenges like the operations of critical infrastructure during pandemics, the rise of climate change, urbanization, aging population. And to help transform the future of infrastructure, the Global Infrastructure Hub created last year the InfraChallenge annual innovation competition that advanced emerging technology by giving innovators an opportunity to bring their solution to the global market. So this year is special because the InfraChallenge is supported by the Italian G20 Presidency and is focused on solutions for better and more resilient infrastructure, a key topic for the G20 and one that we have seen the importance during the COVID-19 pandemic. InfraChallenge is one of our core activities to better bridge the public and the private sector, and a key element of our mission to support the G20 to drive sustainable, resilient, and inclusive infrastructure. So what do we have in store for you today? So let me briefly talk you through the agenda. Today, the top 10 innovators will pitch their technology-based solution for better and more resilient infrastructure. The panel of expert judges will decide the winner of this year's competition. After the pitches, I will be welcoming Sadek Waba. He's the founder and chairman, but also managing partner at I Squared Capital, and he will deliver the keynote address. So let's spend better instead of more. Why infrastructure technology is key for sustainability and prosperity. This will be followed by the award ceremony, where the winner of InfraChallenge 2021 will be announced. So now let me introduce you to Laura Palma, a senior advisor of the G7 and the G20 coordination office for the G20 Italian presidency, who will introducing the pitch session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie, and thanks for the invitation. Let me join you in welcoming all the finalists of the InfraChallenge 2021 competition. Let me first start by congratulating the GI Hub on the excellent work in organizing this remarkable initiative. Let me also thank all the participants and congratulate the top 10 competitors who successfully got to the end of this competition. All of you have demonstrated to be really talented in presenting brilliant, innovative solutions that can truly help infrastructure to be more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive. We all know that the COVID crisis has brought a major challenge for most critical infrastructure systems with the disruptive effects on infrastructure networks. The crisis has shown the importance of having reliable, resilient, and quality infrastructure systems to absorb the unexpected external shocks and ensure the delivery of basic services with adequate quality to the entire population. This is why the Italian G20 presidency this year has adopted a quite ambitious infrastructure agenda with a focus on 4 main priorities: resilience and maintenance, digital infrastructure, sustainable infrastructure, and social inclusion. Let me focus now very briefly on digital infrastructure, as today we are talking about the InfraChallenge. Digital infrastructure is a very important pillar in our agenda. The pandemic has demonstrated that having advanced and well-functioning digital infrastructure is essential for optimizing resource allocation, sustaining productivity, providing essential services, and promoting social inclusion. Therefore, this year, part of the Italian G20 presidency mission has been dedicated to raise awareness on the pivotal role of high-quality broadband connectivity, as well as the importance of addressing existing digital divides as important drivers for economic recovery and strengthening network resilience, functioning, and performance. In doing this, the presidency has been working on a set of voluntary and non-binding guidelines with the support of the OECD, whose aim is to foster financing and improve investment opportunities to extend and upgrade high-level connectivity, as well as to recommend public measures in cases where private financing is not sufficient. As you can see from our priority, we fully recognize digitalization, technology, and innovation as essential drivers for transforming infrastructure and increase their resilience, sustainability, and reliability. For this reason, the Italian G20 Presidency decided to support the InfraChallenge 2021 initiative and include it in its infrastructure agenda. We have seen the development of this initiative through the year. Having almost reached the end, we can see that it has been an intense and exciting path towards innovation in the infrastructure sector that contributed to bring innovative solutions to challenging issues. Technological progress is a crucial driver to stimulate the reaction to changes, discover new opportunities, and facilitate economic growth and development. And this year, the InfraChallenge supported the G20 mission to promote quality infrastructure investment, also in response to the COVID crisis. Let me conclude by giving a special thanks to the three judges of this final event: Ernesto Ciorra, Chief Innovability Officer of the Enel Group; Marie Lanfrendo, CEO of the GIAP; and Prerna Soni, Vice President of Investment India. I wish a good luck to all the finalists for the pitching session, and then I hand over to you, Marie.
Thank you so much, Laura. And it's really been wonderful to have the G20 support throughout each step of the competition over the last 8 months. So we're very, very grateful. And so it now gives me great pleasure to introduce today's speech session. Each of the top 10 competitors will now pitch their solution for 4 minutes, and then answer 3 minutes of Q&A from the judges. So the first team to pitch is 030 Solutions. So good luck to all, and 030 Solution, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm very excited to start off this pitching session. So I'm Nicholas Steenbergen. I'm the co-founder of 030 Solutions, and we map distributed infrastructure. So we're still a small team with some big objectives. Even getting to this stage has been crucial in helping us refine our proposition and building momentum. Winning will be transformative for us. So first, we wanted to stress our understanding of resilience in infrastructure. So this means first, make infrastructure as robust as possible to avoid failure in the first place. Then once failure or collapse happens, we want to expedite, meaning speed up the recovery from any such failures. And then we want to also learn from the failures. So once we fix them, we want to learn from the failures and then transition to a new normal. So we believe knowledge about infrastructure is key here. So we map distributed infrastructure. What do we mean by that? So distributed infrastructure for us is some infrastructure that's spread over a larger surface area. This could be electrical utilities. If you look on the right-hand side, there's a picture of the distribution grid. So these are these wooden poles with electrical wires on top. But it could also be something like railway or telephone companies, which also need to maintain a distributed infrastructure. What do we mean by mapping? It's the positioning and determining the state of the infrastructure, which is necessary to plan actions for the utilities. This could be maintenance, this could be billing, this could also be disaster recovery. However, many of today's utility companies, they still use manual workflows, which is slow and inaccurate. It's not digitized and not accessible from everywhere. So how do we do this? So we have a smart software solution. It's actually an AI software solution, because we got this ask in the previous session. So it uses some data from cars and drone mounted sensors. So drone mounted sensors is nice because you can also apply it to or use it in developing world countries where there might not be such a good street infrastructure. And it basically extracts objects from sensor data. You can see we can extract the ground mesh, the distribution grid on the right hand side, the vegetation, street lights, street signs, and many other objects. It's a fully automatic analysis, so no human intervention required. It's centimeter accurate. It's very versatile, so we can detect lots of different objects. It's once the data is processed, it's accessible digitally and remotely. And one thing that might set us apart from other companies that do similar things is that we maintain good contacts to global mapping companies like TomTom and HERE that either have already data around the world or that have the hardware and the necessary operational capabilities to map on demand, basically. Okay, some use cases. These are for electrical utilities, but our technology is also applicable for other infrastructure types, is asset inventory and the digital twin. This is important for the transition to green energy. Then we have disaster recovery and anomaly detection and vegetation management. So we believe we can do this quicker and cheaper. This contributes to resilience of distributed infrastructure. And we believe something like a campfire in California, it happened in California 2018, caused billions of damages, and even loss of lives might have been avoided using such a solution. So for us, it would be very impactful to win the challenge. It gives us global visibility and credibility, create some customer engagement for our first real world demo project. It will get us into contact with potential customers. And of course, the prize money helps us to get us started. So this is Julian Pensot. He's here with me today to answer some of your questions. And this is Nicholas. Thank you. Now we're ready for questions.
Thank you, Nicholas, and thanks to the 030 Solutions team. So I think Ernesto might have a question for you.
Not any specific questions, but I would like to get in contact with them to deepen the analysis of the solution, because we have evaluated some similar solutions in at least 3 different countries, and we have already developed digital twins for our networks. So it could be interesting, but obviously the analysis should be deepened talking to them.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting, actually. Let's talk then.
I think that you are using mobile scanning, no? Through LiDAR
yeah, exactly.
scanning.
So
okay.
You can put the sensors on a car, and we're also in contact with some...
We started using such technologies in Israel, and after we have found some startups from Israel, another one from Brazil, and we have also implemented some POCs in Brazil, Spain, and Italy. So we think that the technology is useful, but obviously we should check what you are doing and compare it to what other companies are doing. But I think that the technologies are useful for such need, and that the need is very important for companies.
Yeah, we think the same thing, actually. Great. Any other questions?
Just one for me, Nicholas, if I may. I think it's probably complementing also from Ernesto, but what is your competitive landscape? How is your solution unique within the market that you're targeting?
Maybe Julian, you want to answer this?
So I think like there's lots of people, but like one thing that that differentiate us is like Nico said, is that we already have contact with like some huge mapping companies, and so we can start right away anywhere in the world because we might get data from them. And the other thing is something that we want to do in the future. We also want to work on some hardware so that we're going to allow utilities themselves to map things, and having hardware working in well with software should help utilities. So so they don't want to be depending on someone to map for them. They want to be able to map for like themselves and use our solution as a software as a service. And so I think for that, we're going to be different because we're going to do hardware and software. And right now we already have some possibility to do like small pilot project anywhere.
Thanks for the explanation. So I think that probably conclude the pitch and Q&A timing that we had. So thank you again so much to 030 Solutions. And it's time to welcome our next team, IKEA Sanitation.
Thank you, Maria. Hello, everyone. We are IKEA, a wastewater treatment plant in a bag, and a climate resilient wash infrastructure. Today, around 70% of the world population are not connected to sewer network. Therefore, around 1.7 billion people around the world use pit latrine. The impact of this on our health is more than 1.8 million deaths a year and more than $220 billion as economic losses. Now, imagine the impact of climate change and a growing population. Most probably, these numbers will get worse. We are providing a toilet that requires resilient. We are providing you with a new sanitation facility that is resilient to climate condition, requires no energy or water for treatment, having a great reduction in CO2 emission. Therefore, it's more affordable for many of the population. Our climate resilient sanitation system is, as you see in the picture, is composed of four main components. Number one, a bag that acts as a membrane layer, a pan designed for washer and non-washer population, and a powder mix that kills pathogens on site and add value to the treated waste. All of these systems are supported with a track and trace system that will make the operation service more ease in operation. When comparing our sanitation value chain to other sewer and non-sewer sanitation value chain, you will notice that we have the shortest value chain, which will reflect directly on the cost and affordability. Furthermore, our treated byproduct can be recycled into environmental regenerative activity, which can have a big impact on the environment. When comparing IKEA's technology and product to other non-sewer sanitation systems, we have the highest value for the cost being paid. Today, we're building our third pilot in the Zaatari camp under Oxfam organization umbrella, where the goal is to validate social acceptability and product performance in harsh environment. We have done a toilet retrofitting project and a new super Adobe construction. Such as any utility service model, our product and services will flow from regional to local implementers to end users. The byproduct will be collected and sold to agro-based business. Money or might be collected as secondary revenue streams to the local implementers. Through IKEA software, the product, the byproduct, and the cash flow can be facilitated. The market sanitation is quite underserved market. According to WHO, for every $1 invested, the economic return is around $5.50. We're talking about $70 billion year market size. To tap to that market, we're working together with corporate, institutional investment financial tool, and investors who are interested in infrastructure and wash infrastructure. For every 100 users we serve over a year time, this is our impact. And what we're trying to do is to monetize our impact into secondary revenue streams. We have a team with 30 years of experience who's dedicated to work on this mission. And finally, we're looking to unlock access to a network of business specialists, investors, and funders. And thank you for listening, and please, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Baron. Thank you to the IKEA Sanitation team. So, Prerna, I think you might have a question.
Thank you, Marie. Thanks, Para. That was very helpful. I have two questions for you. One, how do you plan to scale it up? How do you plan to scale the business, and what are the markets that you're targeting for this product?
Okay, I think partnership is the key question here. We learned from our first and second pilot that we need to work with partners. As a small innovators, SME startup, we lack the resources. So when we partner with Oxfam, with IDE, and with other organizations, we don't only have access to their human capacity and their expertise, but also we have capacity. We will have access to other potential markets. The first market we're looking to work up next year to validate our business model. So far we have validated our social acceptability and product performance, but we did not validate our business model yet. We're looking to operate in Bangladesh next year to validate the business model and start the scale up journey in Bangladesh market and India market.
Thank you.
And Nestor, any question for Bara?
Not a question, but I am definitely interested in such solution because we think that could be very useful for our creating shared value approach in emerging countries where we are working and where they could really answer a concrete need. Obviously, I would like to have more information about the costs and about alternative solutions that could be used or implemented instead of such of their support. But switching from the idea evaluation to a detailed analysis, obviously it would take time and more information. But if I look at the idea and what they have presented, they are definitely interesting from my point of view because they answer a concrete need.
Thank you, Ernesto. I would like to highlight two points. Our ultimate target price is around 2 cents a user a day. Our current price tag is 5 cents per user per day. However, 5 cents is quite expensive if we are asking it for the end users, because it's an infrastructure thing. And we're targeting the base of the polymer population where people most probably in Bangladesh or India, for example, would make less than $1 a year. What I can say, how we are reaching to that point is by tagging to the impact, CO2 reduction, carbon credit, monetizing the byproduct. We have a unique patent pending technology. Our back-end toilets are made 100% from compostable material, zero plastic. It transformed the human waste, a 10 kg fecal waste into 2 kg of organic-based material. The question is how we can tag this material to industry and sell it. We are taking mentorship right now from the Toilet Board Accelerator, and they're helping us in building a blended business model and reaching out to the right client in order to validate the business model.
Thank you very much, Bara, and thanks to the IKEA Sanitation team. So I think next we have AVIS.
Afternoon, my name is Sebastian Maga and I'm the founder of AVIS. And if you had asked me to pitch my idea in 5 seconds, I would have said that AVIS is a way to make the ground transparent. But why make the ground transparent? Well, underground services represent a major safety risk. In the US, an underground infrastructure is hit on average every second by construction workers, and contact with electricity cable caused 12 deaths and 600 serious injuries last year in the UK alone, and result in huge inefficiency for the construction industry, which have to account for direct repair costs to cover for downtime, repair material, damage to machinery, and other intangible costs such as damaged reputation. It's also a major drag on national economies. It costs $50 to $100 billion every year, and those figures are replicated all over the world. But why is it still a problem today? Well, the truth is no one knows the underground utility exact location. Records are incomplete and outdated. Information comes in multiple forms and formats that makes them hard to understand, and investigation tools are not 100% accurate. So our solution is to use the latest digital innovation to view and map underground services prior to excavation, and then plan and manage, work more effectively, protect existing assets, understand the vulnerability of existing assets, and build a resilient and sustainable infrastructure of tomorrow. So with AVIS, you can make the invisible visible. So to make the ground transparent, we convert existing information, paper record, GIS database, CAD data, into a 3D model or digital twin that can be accessed from our secure platform. You can digitally rehearse, mitigate potential risk, assess where additional intervention may be required, and then detect detailed risk assessment. So you have no more variable data standards and format that makes information hard to manipulate and understand. Once on site, augmented reality is then used to help a user see in the form of a 3-dimensional line the 3D created model superimposed upon the ground in a spatially accurate position. Advantages are significant, which some of our users compare to the leap represented by the introduction of a GPS in a car. Would you ever go back to a GPS in a car? To a roadmap in a car? No. And the benefits are reduction in time taken to mobilize site, constant access to information, no markup that disappear, and in France, where markups are compulsory, you speed up the time taken to mark and maintain those marks. 50 meters of network was taking for 2 persons 45 minutes. No way if our solution is less than 10. And finally, we combine our video acquisition technique with photogrammetry to create as-is and as-built point cloud of open trench. So combine this with AR, and the ground is then 3D transparent, as you can see on the screen. So basically, with our solution, by simply using a smartphone, you can process information and take accurate measurement. The information collected can be integrated into your own workflow and share easily to enable future work to be safer, quicker, less disruptive, and more efficient. AVIS is aimed at all professionals involved in the design, construction, and maintenance of road and infrastructure. With millions of trenches excavated across the world, thousands of hundreds of kilometers of road to be maintained every year, the potential market is tremendous. To address this market, AVIS was launched in 2019, and today we trade in 4 countries and have attracted interest from distributors in 6 others. Our business model is simple. We sell a smartphone GNSS kit package at a fixed and very competitive price. The user then needs to select the application needed for its requirements, which are available as individual monthly or yearly licenses, which include access to our web platform. To conclude, AVIS is a team of experts in the construction, digital, and geospatial technologies. We help develop comprehensive underground utility maps to de-risk your excavation, improve your productivity, reduce your cost, and manage infrastructure safely and sustainably. Thank you. I await your question now.
Thank you very much, Sébastien, for this very interesting presentation and a solution that is indeed at the core of service and service risks. As we know, it's a massive impediment in the construction area. So let me allow me to start with a question, because I'm generally interested to understand more. You're planning here to become a bit of a single source of truth, but you're obviously relying on data that are obviously already available for from various sources. But what is the plan for you to really increase the accuracy of the data and to avoid the garbage in, garbage out type of issue that might be potentially compromising the success of your solution?
So I think governments across the world have understood that the quality of the underground utility data is substandard, and there was multiple advantage of improving the quality of those data. You have the newer initiative in the UK, you have the Régulation Anti-Endommagement in France, the CLIC platform in the Netherlands, and all those, basically what the government in those different countries are doing is that they are collating information, putting them on a standard platform, and then give access to the people that need to use them. What we can do here is help those governments, and basically that's what we're already doing, for example, in the UK and in France, in order to basically help them improve. So we are a visualizer for those information, and we help them also improve the quality of the data by bringing fresh data which are accurate into the mix.
Thanks for the explanation. Any question or comments from Ernesto or Prana?
Just a very quick question. So, Sébastien, I'm talking about the model that you sell to government. So I understand there is a kit in the app, but is there also a knowledge, know-how that is sent across to the governments? If the government has to use it and the people on ground has to use it, how do they understand to actually use this product and to be able to understand what is underneath the ground?
Okay, so obviously when we sell our hardware, which is a purposely made GNSS antenna, and the application that come with it, we do a training to the future users, so that comes part of the package. Basically, the government will be pushing our solution among others as well, which can be similar, to the users, saying, well, this is what we are pushing forward. When people are coming over to us, which they do at the moment, we do train them and help them use our solution. But I have to say that those solutions, they've been developed with those people in mind. So basically, we have developed the solution taking into consideration that the people that will use them have minimum time to understand what we are doing, how we build them, and how to use them. So they are kept very simple in the way they are used.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sébastien. And I think that closes your session plus the Q&A. So thank you again. And
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I have just one question. Just because they're working on a very important need that we already have, and we were scouting for solutions all around the world. We found some solutions in Israel, and those solutions came from another need that they had to look for terrorists that were trying to enter into Israel, digging some tunnels, and they were scanning below the land just to check for and look for terrorists. Sorry, I would like to understand if they have differential features or a real competitive advantage, because I have heard descriptions of their service that is very similar to the other ones that I have already met and that we have already tried. So it sounds interesting, but what can differentiate your proposal and make it unique?
What we found is that existing solutions, they are often too complicated or too expensive to implement and maintain. What we've created is a unique group of solutions which combine various disruptive advantages. So you have a bespoke centimetric positioning hardware. In terms of our as-is and as-built plan, we are certified, which is compulsory in certain countries, and we have automated as well the conversion and transformation workflow. We kept it at a very competitive price, and that basically brings us a differential advantage. So when you use our solution now, and for the use case you describe, you potentially will be in an area where you won't have access to GNSS signal and so on because of the surrounding infrastructure. Our solution is taking that as well. So basically you can use it with the GNSS antenna that we have developed, but you can also use it without the GNSS antenna. And after, it's really a matter of having access to the existing information so we can then display it through our software.
Thank you, Sebastian. Also, in the interest of time, in fairness, I think it's probably time to get Gondola presenting Detectia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gondola Sancho, CEO of Detectia. Detectia brings satellite data to decision making. So the amount of major infrastructures, such as bridges, dams, highways, suffering climate or material-based deterioration is increasing. The lack of preventive maintenance and early detection of failures generate large economic and personal losses, such as the collapse of the Miami building this year. And it's not feasible to monitor all assets with traditional systems that require ground instrumentation. New monitoring tools are needed. Prevention saves money, saves lives, and for this, we need smart data. Detectia has developed iRadar, an infrastructure monitoring tool that generates early warnings based on the latest satellite radar technologies and artificial intelligence, easily integrated within the digital model of the infrastructure. This technology measures movements with millimeter precision without the need for ground instrumentation, being able to make historical studies of the past 25 years. We found by talking to infrastructure managers, they don't want large volume of information, they need early warnings. Our artificial intelligence layer recurrently compares the historical behavior of the asset with the deformation in near real time, filtering out small areas with anomalies and generating the alerts. iRadar is an easy, scalable global solution due to automatized cloud computing, processing of very large areas, no need of ground instrumentation, and easy integration with BIM, GIS, and any digital model. Our target market is the smart infrastructure sector, experiencing the digital revolution of the infrastructure market. Managers using iRadar will benefit of increasing the resilience and the safety of the asset while reducing the costs and the incidents in all the phases of the infrastructure lifecycle. Expanding by 10 years the lifespan of the G20 infrastructure will save up more than $200 billion by 2030. Our software as a service with an annual license, iRadar, is already developed as a complete monitoring solution and API. We have developed and recently published in a scientific paper, Building Health Indices. In this case, they are applied to buildings in central London and integrated into a well-known BIM software. Changes in these indices trigger the alerts. So regarding other DINSAR competitors, we are the only ones 100% focused on infrastructures with a product in the market that integrates DINSAR and artificial intelligence in a SaaS. Detectia was created in November 2019, and since then, we are incubated by a European Space Agency, winners of the SASIR Challenge. We have our first clients are construction and infrastructure maintenance companies in North America, South America, and Europe. Detectia iterates the early warning system based on the real needs of these first clients. We are a spin-off of the Civil Engineering School of Madrid with more than 20 years of expertise in research applied to the control of the ground and infrastructures. Winning InfraChallenge will give us a boost to achieve the deployment of iRadar over 1,000 infrastructures worldwide by 2025. In Detectia, we aim to transform the enormous volume of information provided by satellites into easy-to-interpret data supporting decision-making and contributing to the global digital paradigm shift of digitalization of the infrastructure sector. iRadar, providing early warnings more than data.
Thank you very much, Gondola. So, Prerna, I believe you might have a question.
Thank you, Marie. That's very exciting, Gondola. I have two questions here. One is on the accessibility of satellite imagery across all countries, especially developing nations, to be able to monitor infrastructure at this scale. And second, I want to understand if there are any regulatory restrictions in any countries to use this data for managing infrastructure.
Okay, so at the moment there are several satellites on the space and new launches are planned, and they all have global coverage. So that is guaranteed that you have global coverage in any country. And we haven't found any country yet that has any problem using satellite data. And indeed, it's really interesting for emerging countries. We have a research project working in Central America, trying to reduce the vulnerability and seismic risk of the critical infrastructures. And also, we are in a program delivered by ESA to support the digitalization of Africa according to the Africa Agenda 2063.
Thank you.
Ernesto, any question for Gondola?
We know these technologies. There are several providers of services using leveraging satellites for those purposes. I would like to understand how, if their solution is in early stage, or if they can really provide this kind of service, because we have met several providers of such services, and they are not in early stage phase. So they have this service on the shelf. So this is just the question related to the evolution phase of their service.
Of course, there are several actors, and they've been doing DINSAR for several years, and they are traditional consultancy working in oil and gas and mining. So for sure, you can have your report and your data. But we found for an infrastructure several years, you have thousands of points of virtual sensors with really long time series seeds. So how do you see if something is happening? Do you need to go to the report? Do you need to check the dots yourself? So here, the implementation we have is the artificial intelligence that is implemented in a SaaS, is updated every time there is a new acquisition, and you get the warnings. So you don't have to look through all these virtual points all the time series. You have the early warnings in your computer because we work as a SaaS. So these are the main differences. And we are in the market, so the product is already mature.
Thank you, Candela. And this is time to welcome our next team, PSG Base.
Hi. To reach Paris Agreement targets, the market for green infrastructure investment needs to grow to $7 trillion US. Currently, that market is, so we're a six-fold increase in this decade. It is essential these funds are deployed wisely.
PSG Base is an AI tech platform. It helps capital allocators and policymakers deploy their funds and efforts to greener, more sustainable, more resilient infrastructure and real assets. This past year, we have run 2 paid proof of concepts. These have given us first-hand insight into the problem and the data and analytics needs during the investment deal flow.
Since June, we've received grants from the University of Cambridge, the European Regional Development Fund. We've been selected into the prestigious Climate Change Accelerator at Grantham Institute, won support from the Australian Clean Energy Finance Corporation, and started to pilot large Australian asset manager Palisade. We've produced a deep dive analysis of the Cumbria coal mine. This report is being considered by the UK government's Business, Energy and Industry Committee, as well as the Climate Change Committee in the Mines Planning Investigation.
I'm Dev, founder and CEO of PSG Base. I have a PhD in engineering from Northwestern and an MBA from Columbia Business School. I'm a software programmer and have 15 years experience in product and application development for Fortune 100 companies.
And I'm Nick, and I joined PSG Base because I believe in this. I've helped build alternative investment for over 15 years, and our strategy advisor, Dr. Dana Lumbury, has deep expertise in financial service and innovation.
Combined, our founding team has 50 years expertise in the industry. Winning the InfraChallenge would go a long way to help PSG Base build greener, more sustainable, more resilient infrastructure.
Thank you, Dev. Thank you, Nick. So very interesting solution, if I may start, because of course, ESG is very much at the core of the G20 work, also overall, because trying to create a roadmap for infrastructure is an asset class now, and getting more private sector involved is really through ESG, right? So one question I have for you, though, is that there is a lot of ESG standards that exist out there, the GRACE-B, the SURE, the Envision. How is the data that you provide matching with those potential criteria, or is it more for a high-level preliminary assessment? So where do you position yourself into the value chain for ESG assessment?
Sure. And I know we had a short presentation. I think we still have about 2 minutes left in the presentation. So I don't know if
I'm feeling terribly sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, and that might answer some of the questions that you have already, Marie.
With governments, investors and fund managers.
Uh-oh, and the sound is not playing.
Dev, there seems to be a bit of an issue with the sound on the video. If you want, we can put it back to the beginning and you can talk over it.
Okay.
Yeah, just play the slide, it should work.
Yeah, okay.
With governments, investors and fund managers rapidly shifting strategies towards sustainability, reliable environmental, social and governance assessment of infrastructure and real asset investment is becoming essential. Today, that's carried out by external consultancies and rating agencies. However, the quality and breadth of data from rating agencies can be limited, while consultant input can be expensive and time-consuming, meaning it is used only for high-profile projects. This leaves many investments open to greenwashing. PSG Base offers a much faster, more reliable and less costly alternative. Our groundbreaking AI technology performs a rigorous predictive analysis of assets by drawing from an enormous variety of datasets, such as satellite imagery, natural disaster, and meteorological data. Its advanced algorithm conducts complex evaluations of infrastructure and real assets for any location, and produces within minutes risk and impact analysis and financial viability of a real asset. Our solution also provides ongoing monitoring of an asset's performance, as well as ESG reporting capabilities. With ESG becoming an essential part of investment strategy, our scalable solution lets you determine the ESG credentials for all your real asset investments. Invest in smarter, greener, more resilient infrastructure. Discover more at esgbase.com.
So going back to Marylam's question around the data quality. So basically what really differentiates us from, say, the other players in this field who are providing ESG data is that our approach is very much a bottom-up science-based approach. There aren't other players in the field who has this kind of building essentially digital twin models from the fundamentals of science and being able to predict the performance. So this whole, most of the data providers are currently providing information based on past performance, whereas what we do is integrate the past performance with the predicted future performance, very much like, say, predicting the cash flow of an investment, or but we're also looking at the kind of the impact and the ESG impact of an investment going forward. So that's what essentially differentiates us. And we are also an end-to-end solution provider. So in a way, you could think of us as an operating system than a software. So we're building a system that could essentially plug in any different data sets, different kinds of analysis, and we'd be able to provide a holistic view of different investments that go into in the infrastructure area.
Thank you, Jeff, for the explanation. Any question from Prana or Ernesto?
I have just a comment that it looks more theoretical if compared with other solutions that we have heard today and that we are going to listen. But it looks farther away from everyday operations and business, but it certainly appears very useful, because today there is too much greenwashing and there is so few sustainability. And people are talking about ESG, but in many cases companies are not measuring in with the right methodology and with some figures that could be certified. So they are answering a big global need that comes from the NGOs, and it implies also the capital markets, because they have to evaluate companies, buildings, activities, projects according to methodologies, and using solutions like this to integrate the algorithms job that today, unfortunately, has many failures because the algorithm jobs produces investments in, just to share with you an example, fossil fuel companies and giant oil companies, because they appear in some cases sustainable. So I think that this solution and other solutions like this could be very effective also to increase the transparency of the markets.
Absolutely, Ernesto. And I think what you just stated was essentially the inspiration for founding this venture for us, and kind of this problem of greenwashing, and coming at this problem with a very objective lens, which is very science-based, very bottom-up based. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is really aimed at anyone who's a capital allocator. So whether it's a policymaker, whether it's an investor or government. So recently we've been working with the UK government on the Cumbria coal mine project. So they're using our analysis to determine the financial viability as well as the ESG impact of a new project that they're thinking about. But at the same time, we have also been working with different infrastructure investors who are looking at the ESG risks or climate risks, for example, of their current investments and trying to address those, as well as future investments and the kind of risk that they need to consider when they deploy their capital. So yeah, the use cases are immense, and like I said, we're building it in a fashion of an operating system. So essentially, as investors' needs evolve, as ESG evolve as a discipline, we are in a good position to be able to plug in and utilize more analysis, more data sets to meet the needs of the future market.
Thank you, Dev, and thank you, Nick, and the ESG Base team. So next is Green Rail.
Thank you very much for the floor, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to be one of the top 10 InfraChallenge participants. My name is Emanuele Chipinti, and today I'm here as Vice President of Green Rail. Is not moving. Just a moment. I don't know. Okay, we are talking about a circular infrastructure solution, and practically a railway sleepers that combine all the benefit of a concrete sleeper plus all the benefit of sustainable sleeper. Green rail sleeper is obtained by end-of-life tires and plastic recycle, and with an inner core obtained by pre-stressed concrete. We can summarize that thanks to this special composition, it has several benefits that we can summarize in technical, environmental, and economic one. In technical one is that thanks to their elasticity, it is able to have a lower ballast pulverization. The ballast is the stone that is below the sleepers. And it has a better lateral displacement, and it's also really important, another technical characteristic, and it can insulate completely the concrete that inside, and it can better resist from the phenomenon on freezing thaw than with the like in the North Country when it's freezing and the temperature arrives -50, -60. A single drop of water can enter in the concrete that with the timing can arrive to destroy the concrete, and it is transformed that in one side the concrete has a lower lifespan, on the other it can also arrive to destroy the concrete, and it has also the concrete sleeper a longer lifespan. The laboratory test certificate that it's around 70 years, which certificate in the market around 50 years. And it's also another really important characteristic, and is that allow to reduce the noise and vibration. We did the test in the center of Italy with the National Research Center, it's called CNR, that certified that the noise and vibration were reduced around, it depends from the line, around from 25 to 35% compared to the traditional line in the same place. And another really important characteristic is that this kind of line, this kind of green rail line, can be used in any kind of line. What does it mean? It means that we can use to substitute the traditional line, or we can use it for the new line, regular line, high speed, metro, any kind of line. There are also several economic benefits, because all these technical benefits arrive to have during the life cycle span of the product, we can have around 40% of the reduction of cost of maintenance. And in terms of railway sector, we are talking about really high quantity, a high number of cost of maintenance. Another characteristic, and goes proceed speedily, and in terms of environmental benefit, it's allowed to reuse up to 35 tons of plastic and rubber recycled each kilometer. So it's around more or less 17 tons of plastic and 70 tons of rubber each kilometer. And we did a calculation of CO2 emission with the University of Politecnico di Milano in Milan, and that calculated that there is a CO2 emission killing around 35% compared to the traditional one. And really few seconds, we are also in an R&D product that are able to transform a railway line from passive that using just for the train to active that is able to produce energy. This is a test on field, but it's just a R&D product. Thank you. I'm ready for your question.
Thank you, Emanuele, and the Green Rail team. So Prana, I believe you might have a question.
Thank you, Marie. I'd like to understand, Emanuele, where exactly are you with respect to testing the product? What all countries are you already supplying to, and how do you plan to scale the product?
The picture that you saw in the picture in the presentation, it was in Italy, and we installed a pilot. We can say a pilot line in nearby. Bologna, Reggio Emilia, in the regional line, and in Lombardia, nearby Milan. And we are now in the market phase, starting to do a new financial injection in the capital to build our own plant, because now being a startup, of course, everything it was in outsourcing. Now we need our own plant. And we are in that phase, negotiating with the National Fund and international construction company to do JV or intervene in the capital to develop the company. We have a patent in 80 countries, so we are our business model. It's quite simple. We cannot develop by our own in each 80 country where we have the patent, of course. So we are a licensing company. We are looking for the best partner in each country or in some part of the world where to establish a JV or to leave the patent, and they will take care about to develop and construct the plant in that country.
Thank you very much, Emanuele. And
you're welcome.
We are slightly running over time, so let me introduce you to the next team, InfraClear and Giridhar.
All right, thanks, Marie. Hi, I'm Giridhar Srinivasan, the CEO of InfraClear, and we're building a new data platform that can fundamentally transform project development and project finance. So let me try to pull that forward. There we go. So we all know that there aren't enough bankable projects. There's no standardization, and until now, there's been no global database which tells you, here's how the last 300 solar projects have been structured. And so without that data, it's really hard to point out what's market and for developers and governments to quickly convince people there's a fair deal. So they have to go and develop projects from scratch each time. And negotiations drag on, and we spend hundreds of billions of dollars every year trying to develop projects, but 90% of viable projects initiated by good sponsors never reach financial close. So what we've done at InfraClear is we've gathered thousands of agreements, and we use machine learning to go and extract data from these documents. And on top of this data, we're building several products that address pain points throughout the project cycle. So now you can quickly find agreements or compare tariff escalations or termination clauses across hundreds of projects and quickly conclude this is what's been done before and this is what works. And this kind of information can shave years off the time it takes to develop a project. And using our tools, we can also scan existing portfolios and say, look, 14% of the projects in your portfolio are in flood zones, but don't have force majeure protection for a flood. And so lenders and insurers have said they want to use their tools to go and analyze their own portfolios and start to go and insure and hedge against climate shocks. But I don't think this is just about disrupting existing ways of doing business, but really this kind of data platform can unlock new opportunities. So we know the holy grail of infrastructure is to make it a transparent asset class. There's about $3 trillion of loans outstanding and less than 1% has been securitized, but because the agreements are so opaque, it's very hard to conduct diligence. But groups like Bayfront Infrastructure, which is the world's leading infrastructure securitization platform, and the London Stock Exchange Group have said, look, these tools could help reduce the time it takes to conduct diligence and reduce solvency to capital charges by 65%. It's obviously a massive opportunity over here. So how do you go to market with this? You know, this is a big market. There's a few different channels. Obviously, we're in direct negotiations to go and work with some developers, lenders, infrastructure funds, and even law firms who feel this could help them with structuring, portfolio management, and more. We've also been surprised that potential competitors, people like Thomson Reuters and State Street, have said, we don't want to build on our own. We want to go and deploy your products on our platform. And so these kinds of channel partners can help us scale very quickly. We've also been surprised that, you know, this is sort of never been seen data, and clients like regulators are now saying we want to use this to go and supervise bank portfolios and identify potential corruption. So really the range of applications for this kind of data is quite, it's surprising us. We hear of new applications almost every week, but it's pretty exciting. I'm trying to get the next slide here. There we go. Look, so what's the outcome? What's the impact of all of this? I mean, as somebody who spent 15 years going and developing projects, we know that project finance is broken. It's a struggling industry. We've been developing projects by hand for years, and we're failing to deliver against climate goals. But we believe this kind of data platform with the products on top of it can accelerate the development of renewables, ensure assets against climate risks, and finally make infrastructure a standardized, transparent, and liquid asset class. Ready for questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Giridhar, for this presentation. Ernesto, you might have a question.
Sorry, I had to activate the audio. No, I have no questions. I'm definitely interested on getting in contact with them, to be honest, because I see different potential opportunities for collaborations, because when you have to develop new infrastructures, when you have to develop new renewable plants, to have a massive database of infrastructure in order to assess the risks, to assess the performance, and to make easier to develop the bankable projects. Bankable projects is very important. We can improve risk management. We can help securitize infrastructure debt and also equity. And I don't know if they really are able to do what they say, but what they say is very important.
I'll show you a demo. We built out a data platform. I think that the two things I'll say about it. The first exercise was to go and find all this data, and we did that, right? A shocking amount of data is available in the public domain. And now what's also interesting is, you know, clients are saying, we'll share data with you also anonymously, because we want to understand and benchmark ourselves against markets. So the first thing was to go find the data. We've built out a data platform where you can go from raw document to data in under a minute. So we've built out that scalable data pipeline also. And really now, once, you know, the trick is to be able to go and extract more and more layers of data and use that for different applications. But I'll just say one thing, that it's not just useful during project development, it's also for life cycle portfolio management, right? So to surface issues early warning systems and all of that. So there's a number of applications over the life cycle of the project.
And I think that also information about the energy management services that every building has, or the real consumption of the real efficiency of every building, and many other information that we already have could enrich also the database. So
yes. Yeah, it's
Definitely
about
a follow-up to do. I'm just
Yeah.
conscious of time, but I could see that there would be a follow-up definitely after that discussion. Great. Thank you very much, Giridhar. And I think we can now welcome the next team, and it is IRIS.
Hello, and thanks for joining us today. IRIS is a smart city solutions company. We help cities monitor and maintain public infrastructure intelligently. In fact, what makes us unique is that our patented technology has application across a number of industries with a number of product suites in production today. But we're focused in the immediate term with resilient infrastructure and smart cities. Now, I want you to put your hands up if you own a vehicle. Now keep those hands up if you like driving over potholes with your vehicle. I know, right? Every day around the world, every city has the same problem. And this is the problem we're solving. Municipalities are spending millions of taxpayer dollars to manually catalog potholes, cracks, and other road defects. And they do it daily with a clipboard. These are actual pictures from one of our clients before we arrived. This pen and paper process has not changed in decades. It is slow, it's expensive, and is prone to human error. Globally, municipalities are spending billions to pay for road assessment surveys. This method is expensive and unbelievably slow, as these big Fugro trucks need to drive each road manually. Again, some of our clients have been using these expensive trucks. And the problem is not just with cities. Utilities, airports, rail, manufacturing, and the industry in general are suffering with the lack of easily accessible, affordable, and smart data collection and reporting. There has to be a better way. We have commercialized an award-winning AI-enabled plug-and-play IoT camera. We call it Iris Go. The Iris Go device is installed on city vehicles, street poles, parks, and other places, collecting and reporting data daily. Here it is installed on Hamilton garbage trucks, bringing significant economic, societal, and environmental benefits, including a reduction of 150,000 tons of CO2e annually in North America. The technology uses AI to automatically detect objects of interest and its attributes, including type, material, size, quantity, and other measurements that feed into reporting and analytics dashboards. This automated solution produces significantly better results at a substantially lower cost than current standard processes used by cities and municipalities today. We're able to detect pavement cracking, roughness index data, pavement condition data. We're collecting right-of-way data such as hydrants, bus shelters, and signs all in one pass. 100% faster, 50% cheaper. We've also patented the redaction of private faces and license plates. This is done on the device for added security. It's one of our competitive advantages. All data captured by Iris Go is presented on our data platform, Iris City. Using Iris City, clients are able to see real-time data that would otherwise take months to collect using the manual, expensive Fugro trucks. Sorry, let me just get the slides back here. We're reporting on a wide array of we're missing a few slides. I'm very sorry. But let me just continue. We're reporting on a wide array of asset classes, gaining significant efficiencies through the use of AI and predictive analytics. We're breaking down silos within cities with one department collecting data and multiple departments accessing that data. With that slide, you're going to be able to see a sample of our Iris City portal. Now, going into the next slide, you're going to see some client traction that we have. On our screen was supposed to be our revenue for this quarter, that's amounting to $300,000. We've raised also a total of $1.8 million in funding with the revenue growth of 171% in the last few quarters. We're also winning competitive RFPs against well-established industry players and direct competitors like Fugro and others whom we're starting to disrupt. Key employees are leaving these industry-leading companies to work with Iris technology. In this slide also, that's supposed to be in front of you, is an RFP that we won with the city of Bonn. That's demonstrating that we've actually established a market niche and that our solution is comparable against the incumbents that's dominated the space. We're currently in Canada, Indonesia, Japan, and the US. Winning this challenge will enable us to scale globally and reach emerging economies that needs our solution the most. I wanted to end our presentation with testimonials that's supposed to be in our screen again, but these testimonials talk about our projects in the city of Hamilton, the city of London, and the city of Guelph, and city employees, our municipal partners, basically saying that the technology works. it is tested out in the field, and they're realizing economic, societal, and environmental benefits from it. Thank you so much. And I also have here David, my co-founder, ready to answer your questions.
Emil, I can share my screen and show those other slides while we answer questions.
That'll be great.
If you can take off your screen share.
This is controlled, I guess, by
okay. All right.
by the staff.
Jordana. Yeah, so in any case, I think that's probably, we could still probably cover some of those elements for the question. Prerna, would you have any question for the IRIS team?
Thank you. I have one question. So I want to understand when you look at accessing information and providing information on what really is happening, do you have to input data or from the region that you're trying to monitor? So if you're doing roads in one direction and on the other side you're monitoring airports, is there any raw data that has to be input upfront into your system?
So
no,
sorry, go ahead, David. Go ahead.
Yeah, the beauty of our solution as you compare it to the other very fine 9 finalists here today, is that our solution, we don't depend on anyone else to provide our solution value to customers. We have a truly end-to-end. Our data collection, so we get the data for customers and clients and cities that need it with our device on a privacy redaction basis, right through to turning that data into information that flows right into their work streams, like work order generation and things like that. We're cost effective in doing it. So there's very few barriers that we haven't already gotten over. And we're unique because we're doing it unlike other AI companies that can detect potholes. There are many of them, but ours, we redact the data, which we've patented, so that it's very private. And we also crack the very difficult nut with civil engineers needing to procure those big, huge Fugro trucks to do PCI data for road maintenance. We can do that PCI data with our algorithms and our software, again, something we patented. So we're unique on that. And our devices can be static and mobile. So we're on poles, we're on airports. We can go anywhere really that data needs to be collected. So there's very few barriers. And these huge software companies that provide data currently, and they're huge global companies to cities, they're embracing our technology because they had a lack of data collection. They relied on their customers getting the data, which they were doing it manually, that Emil elaborated on. So they're partnering with us to provide their customers with a real end-to-end solution.
Thank you very much. And conscious of time, thank you very much to the IRIS team. And I think we're going to welcome the next team, IRIS.
Let's hit the road now. We are Renaud and Nicolas. We are the co-founder of IRIS within the Holcim Group.
Can I have the presentation, please?
So we were having a bit of IRIS in the IRIS, so now it's the opposite. Who's leading that?
Sorry, it's just frozen on our end. Give us 2 seconds while we just reshare.
Thank you, Jordana. Okay, I'm sure road was part of your day. So whether you walk, took a bus, or rode your bike. It's because roads are a necessity, and 700,000 kilometers are built every year and represent 1% of the world GDP. People's mobility is a vector of growth and well-being, and this must be secured over the next decades. And that's why we decided to act, and we created IRIS that we are proud to present now. You can launch the video because I don't have the control. So thank you.
Road infrastructure is among the most valuable assets of our communities. Roads offer access to trade, jobs, education, and healthcare facilities. Over the last few years, climate change has created vulnerability in our road networks due to heavy floods and extreme temperatures. What if data and artificial intelligence could help us predict the impact on roads of extreme weather events and choose their design accordingly? This is the ambition of ORIS, the first digital materials platform for the road construction industry. ORIS connects the road construction sector to local materials and enables responsible material consumption for more resilient and sustainable roads. Developed by Holcim, ORIS combines materials leader expertise with sustainable pavement solutions. Building resilient road networks is highly dependent on its structural design. Risk of flash floods requires drainable surfaces. Extreme heat risk requires specific surface materials to limit rotting. As each road is unique and its sustainability is dependent on its location, each road design should take into account local sourcing availability, carbon footprint over its lifetime, and longevity. With ORIS, users can compare multiple road pavement solutions for a given project and achieve key benefits for all users. Costs can be reduced by 30%, carbon footprint mitigated by 50%, natural resources consumption cut by 80%. Anticipating extreme weather events, local conditions, and selecting the adequate material to build a road is fundamental to the right balance between costs and performance. By bringing a holistic view to public authorities, road owners, and communities around the world, ORIS enables sustainable, long-lasting, and resilient road infrastructure.
ORIS is now available with climate, cost, and durability models. Funding from the InfraChallenge would speed up the development of our resilience module. The G20 perimeter offers a massive reach to the world and its challenges. ORIS ambitions to be the leading solution to fast-track 3 benefits. Public spending reduced by $50 billion to be better allocated to communities and social needs. Thanks to circular economy, 1.5 billion tons of materials can be saved annually, representing 3% of the yearly consumption, and also 30 million tons of carbon emission can be avoided. Innovation is always a journey, and it is incredibly complex for public infrastructure to evolve in the right direction. So collaboration between public and private will be key to align all players. We are extremely grateful to the G20 for leading initiative to improve public investment, and we look forward to working together. Thank you. We are ready for questions now.
Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you, Renaud. Is there any question for Prana or Ernesto?
No, everything is clear to me. And as I said before, for other companies, we should deepen the analysis, working with them, try to understand if these solutions can be used for analysis of local and national resiliency plans, because we have NL Foundation is a think tank, and we produce research and analysis for the governments for free. So we don't charge anything, but just to give a contribution to the communities where we operate. I think that these applications could be very useful to prioritize analysis, investments, to increase the resiliency of the roads. So this one and the previous one could be very interesting, but we should better understand, because in a pitch you can just evaluate some aspects, but not having all the information that you need.
Definitely. No, thanks for the interest. Actually, in a pitch we pitch, but usually we work, so that's a good opportunity.
Yes.
But back to your question on the local things, ORIS is really based on local materials, local knowledge, and really local understanding of the things, together with a scalable system and automated system, so we can really make the job in kind of any situation regarding roads. So happy to look closer to your needs and be in touch with you.
Thank you very much, Nicolas and Renaud, for this very clear pitch. And then it is now time to welcome the last competitor of this top 10 with Expert Converter.
Thank you, Marie, for your introduction. Good afternoon. My name is Jose Yuc, and I am the CEO of the company Expert Converters, enabling resilient infrastructure for lightning and electric vehicle charging networks. Our company, Expert Converters, brings to the market. I think it's not moving. Okay. Our company, Expert Converters, brings to the market a technology that will repower an existing infrastructure, the streetlight power lines, to be sustainable and resiliently deployed and maintained to create charging networks for electric vehicles, and using the same wiring and making feasible the charge of several electric vehicles simultaneously without interruption of the lightning service. We bring resilience to power lines that feed more than 370 million of streetlight points. There's no better way to increase resilience than migrating from monofunctional to multi-purpose infrastructure, offering both lightning and electric vehicle charging services, increasing the operational capacity, maintenance, and keeping assets digitized, and extending their life cycle, adopting the circular economy model. Sustainable mobility is not in the right path to meet the Paris Agreement on climate change. Electric vehicle sales are increasing, but charging points increased by only half in the same period of time. The conclusion is clear: charging infrastructure is not growing at the expected rate. Why this technology should be implemented? Well, sustainable mobility can't wait any longer. We have everything in our favor. What are we missing? The answer is quite simple. We are missing charging infrastructure. And who benefits? This technology will benefit today 55% of the world population living in cities, 4.2 billion people, and 6.6 billion people in 2050. Market is huge. In a first estimate, number of charging points that we will require in our streets to meet decarbonization targets will vary from 10 million in 2025 to more than 70 million in 2050. Our technology will feed these charging points, reaching a value of the equipment of 10.4 billion at that time. Our business model will be technology provider to manufacturers, fully scalable, so they can sell products based on our technology to energy services providers and ensuring a worldwide scope. I think that presentation is not moving forward. Yes, well, our business model will be technology providers to manufacturers, fully scalable, so they can sell products based on our technology to energy services providers and assuring a worldwide scope. Contrary to the current situation, which requires trenching and rewiring, our technology will require two kinds of equipment. It's not moving forward, sorry. An upstream box to be installed in the electric board and a downstream board to be integrated in every charging point. Very simple to install. Our technology is the only in the world that repowers the grid using the same wires and can offer charging services to electric vehicles while maintaining the main services, which is lightning, and having three pillars. Sorry, it's not moving. I'm very sorry. We have three pillars: a disruptive technology, a business model based on the licensing agreement, and a team with more than 25 years of experience and 22 patents on the field. As far as benefits for the users are concerned, we can group them in three aspects. The economic benefits: we estimated the reduction of investment using our technology of up to 138 billion euro at a global level. The environmental benefits: having in consideration the drastic reduction of time deployment using our technology, this will allow us to reach decarbonization targets a decade earlier, reaching emission savings of 9.5 gigatons of CO2. Social benefits should be now in the slide in front of you. Social benefits are multiple, among which we highlight less air and noise pollution, less traffic congestions, and full accessibility to sustainable mobility. We already have a prototype in our lab, and we started discussions with manufacturers, utilities, and municipalities, and they are very interested in testing the technology with a pilot test. With InfraChallenge support, we can have a prototype in the field in 5 months, and the successful pilot test, current regulation will enable this multi-purpose infrastructure. and our customers will require 5 additional months to put boxes in the market. For us, winning InfraChallenge competition will give us credibility, visibility, and networking, and will be crucial to reach the market. Thanks very much for this opportunity, and I'm ready for your questions. And I'm very sorry, but I missed several slides and I couldn't explain them properly. I'm sorry.
Hi, okay, thank you so much, Jose. I think Ernesto, do you have a question for expert converters?
I'm much interested on better knowing the technologies that they're using, because this is a disruptive idea. We are already working on this idea. We have found similar solutions from Germany and Switzerland, but we are definitely interested on better knowing, because the details make the difference, unfortunately. And the idea is brilliant. The technology is potentially mature, so the upscale is guaranteed, and the need is massive, because in every city we have lamps, but in every city we need infrastructure to recharge electric cars. So, and in every also isolated areas we have lamps, but we have not infrastructure to recharge electric cars. So in isolated rural areas, the idea could be even more and more important than in cities. So I think that it is scalable, it is interesting, it answers a very important need. It's in line with the energy revolution or transition. People call it transition. I prefer to call it revolution, because a transition is something that you are not going, it doesn't bring to something real new. But okay, so I hope to have the chance to get in contact with them.
Thanks, Ernesto, for your feedback, and especially coming from a company that is a global leader in sustainable mobility. We really think that the only chance that we have to meet sustainable mobility targets, as far as decarbonization is concerned, the only chance is using an existing and already deployed technology. If we have to start digging trenches and rewiring, we are lost. We're not going to get the targets. We will be lost, and that's for sure. Sorry.
The friends of the light side of the force, the companies and people who don't want the energy revolution, they count on future technologies because they don't want to change now.
Yes.
So I totally agree with you. You can make it happen today using existing technologies, not waiting for something that doesn't exist, because in the long term we'll be all dead, as John Maynard Keynes said.
Yes.
So it's better to survive. It's better to change now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for your feedback. Well, now I can see now the slides that I missed, and unfortunately, I couldn't explain them in real time. I'm very sorry for that, for this opportunity. But anyway, this is that is showing the impact that you have from the environmental point of view, because with the deployment time that you are saving, you can get the decarbonization targets a decade earlier. And that means almost 10 gigatons of CO2. That's a huge amount of emission savings. And obviously you are reusing materials, so you are also saving more than 1.3 million of tons of copper, following the circular economy model. So
thank you, Jose. Thank you very much, and thanks for also taking the time to answer the question. So we're a bit over time, but let me first thank you all the top 10 innovators for those amazing pitches. I think we've and I'm sure you've been as delighted as we have been. A lot of various solutions and very interesting approaches and lots of passion. So I'm now delighted to introduce Cedric Weber, founder, chairman, and managing partner of IKEA Squared Capital, to deliver tonight's keynote address on Let's Spend Better Instead of More, and why infrastructure technology is key for sustainability and prosperity. So welcome, Cedric.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's a great pleasure to participate in the G20 InfraChallenge. This is truly an exciting endeavor, and I wish all the participants good luck. I'd like to start by thanking everyone at the Global Infrastructure Hub for extending me the privilege of addressing you today. My particular thanks go out to Mary Lamfredo, who's done such a terrific job at developing the organization and establishing it as a critical resource for understanding and appreciating the massive role that infrastructure plays in economic development. I can't emphasize enough the importance of the GI Hub as a source of information and as a generator of actionable ideas. The competition is of particular interest to me because it addresses such an urgent need in the evolution of infrastructure, and also because it so perfectly bridges my worlds. I'm fully engaged with infrastructure policy, but from the perspective of an investor. And at my firm, we've realized the importance of technology in infrastructure and have become an active investor in that field. So I've been fortunate enough to see the very exciting innovations emerging at the intersection of infrastructure and technology. It's an intersection that doesn't get nearly enough attention. And I hope that in our discussion today, and more significantly, in all the work your organization is doing, we can begin to remedy that and talk about how to truly create the infrastructure of the 21st century. The prevailing perception of infrastructure is that it's not technology driven, but rather industrial, static, and heavily regulated. This perception is pervasive and widespread. Recently, I conducted a survey of 1,000 Americans about their perceptions of infrastructure. The results are available on the website of the Development Research Institute at New York University. My goal was to understand and help inform the current US debate over infrastructure legislation. And when I asked the respondents to define infrastructure, by far the most popular answer, with 66% responding, was roads, bridges, and tunnels. Technology, unfortunately, was nowhere in the picture. The recent debate about the Biden administration's infrastructure investment plan, Build Back Better, was dominated by the same perception. It centered on the differences between traditional infrastructure, basically roads, bridges, and other transportation components, and non-traditional infrastructure in sectors such as health and education. But I believe this has been the wrong debate. The Biden administration got it right. There is no meaningful distinction between traditional and non-traditional infrastructure. What we should instead be discussing is the true nature of our infrastructure needs. The focus going forward should be on smart, sustainable infrastructure that covers all sectors. The breadth of areas covered by the competitors illustrates exactly this point. What the infrastructure investment plan proposed by President Biden offers for the first time, as I'll discuss later, is precisely the investment in technology and infrastructure necessary to improve delivery and reliability and to make infrastructure sustainable and resilient to climate change. Now, there are reasons why our traditional infrastructure has been slow in adopting new technology. What makes infrastructure as an asset class attractive to investors? Key characteristics include regulation, predictable cash flows through long-term contracts, long duration assets, relatively high barriers to entry, and correlation to inflation. Paradoxically, these are the same characteristics that have traditionally discouraged the adoption of new technologies. Since 1995, labor productivity in non-store retail outgrew infrastructure sector productivity by a factor of 4. These productivity gains were driven by the extraordinary adoption of technology in that sector compared to infrastructure. We in the infrastructure sectors cannot afford to miss out on such gains or on the other advantages that investment in modern technology-driven infrastructure can provide. Why not? Well, the reason has to do with another area of your organization's focus, the critical role of infrastructure in promoting economic development. This is something we know well, but it's always worthwhile to remind ourselves that there is a strong connection between investment in infrastructure and economic growth in both the developed and the developing world. A recent report by the IMF reaffirmed the importance of public investment to economic growth and made the case for scaling up infrastructure investment, especially during a recovery period. Specifically, with regard to infrastructure and looking at the US, studies have suggested that every 100 billion in infrastructure spending can boost GDP by up to 150 billion. This increase in GDP could increase employment by an additional 1 million workers. This plays out, by the way, globally as well. Increasing infrastructure investment by 1 percentage point of GDP could generate up to 3.4 million jobs in India and up to 1.3 million jobs in Brazil. So that would seem to be an airtight case for infrastructure investment. And yet we are falling short. Despite global spending of 3.3 trillion per year in the transport, power, water, telecom systems, as well as social infrastructure, current spending levels are well below the world's infrastructure capital needs. And this is a constraining factor to broader economic growth and technology adoption. To maintain sustainable growth rates, spending levels would need to address an infrastructure investment deficit of $18 trillion, including deferred spending for the maintenance and/or replacement of aging infrastructure in many countries. In the US, the picture is similar, but perhaps more dire. US infrastructure investment went into sharp decline starting in 1970 and has never recovered. It currently sits at approximately 1% of GDP. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates that infrastructure investment is 2.5 trillion short of the level needed just to bring existing infrastructure into an adequate state of repair. That is, without starting any new projects. And further predicts that if the 10-year infrastructure gap of 2 trillion is not addressed, the cost will be 10 trillion in US GDP by 2039. Now, I don't want to go off topic, but it's worth mentioning that China, by contrast, dramatically ramped up its infrastructure investments since the 1980s to a level currently estimated at 8% of GDP, and has been able to export its infrastructure know-how and industrial capacity globally. I have argued in a recent paper published by the Wilson Center in Washington, DC, that the investment in sustainable infrastructure should be a common goal for all. And I sincerely hope that all members of the G20 will collaborate to invest jointly in the infrastructure technologies that will make our global economic system more efficient. This will ensure sustainable economic growth in an equitable manner for the coming decades, rather than compete in an area where our needs are so great. More immediately relevant to our conversation is the fact that we in the US now have the opportunity to begin to build our infrastructure back better and reverse that neglect. The pressing questions are how, and how do we get there? Within the next 2 weeks, we may see a dramatic increase in US infrastructure investment via the passage of the 1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure framework and the 3.5 trillion reconciliation package. The two measures are the subject of intense debate that is only going to increase in the coming days. But as interesting to us as the amount of investment is also the direction that it might take. Fortunately, there is the promise that the current legislation proposed by the president in final form will begin to move us in the direction of technology-focused infrastructure. The bipartisan infrastructure plan includes funding for capital expenditure as well as technology R&D. For example, $7.5 billion for electric vehicles charging stations, $5 billion for electric school buses, $47 billion for cybersecurity and climate change measures, $65 billion for broadband infrastructure, and $65 billion to modernize the power grid. This is all good news. Technology and R&D funding should be an integral part of any infrastructure investment program. Through the resulting increased productivity, it will enable us to reduce capital investment requirements. But at a more basic level, it will allow us to build infrastructure that matches our needs. So what are those needs? The short answer is that our global infrastructure is increasingly under massive stress. But rapidly emerging technologies afford us the means to make infrastructure resilient and to align it with 21st century conditions of engagement. Among those conditions are long-term secular factors: urbanization, population growth, and rising energy consumption. These pose increasingly complex challenges to the infrastructure sector as available space and resource options are more and more constrained. Then add immediate emerging stressors: climate change, COVID-19 pandemic, cyber attack, and the inherent vulnerability of complex infrastructure systems. So let's discuss in more details. Population growth. The global population is rapidly increasing, and with it, infrastructure demand. The UN estimates that by 2050, global population will have risen to 9.7 billion people, with 87% of the population situated in growth economies. But a significant portion of the legacy infrastructure in use today is outdated. This creates a dual challenge: having to replace assets globally as they go out of operation, and increasing the total amount of infrastructure built in order to serve and support these populations and local economies. While this is a challenge, it's also, of course, the opportunity to introduce technology and fundamentally alter the way we deliver infrastructure service. Increasing density and urbanization. The World Bank estimates that in 1960, under 35% of the global population lived in urbanized areas. By 2018, that figure had risen to nearly 55% and is expected to grow to over 75% in the coming decades. The challenges that infrastructure operators globally will face in the coming years will be focused on the demands of urban centers and the need to develop smart cities. Construction boom. With population growth and urban density comes construction. Between 2020 and 2060, it's estimated that nearly 186 billion square meters of buildings will be constructed. Now, that's equivalent to erecting another New York City every month for the next 40 years. I think it's worth repeating. It's equivalent to erecting another New York City every month for the next 40 years. So it further establishes the existential need for smart city infrastructure. So I'll give you an example. Buildings are among the largest contributors to global warming. Concrete and steel industries represent 10% of the world's annual greenhouse gas emissions. In operating these buildings and assets, heating and cooling via HVAC systems consumes more energy than any other household appliances. So this creates a vicious circle. As the world gets richer and more populous, it also gets hotter, with HVAC installations expected to rise from 1.6 billion units in 2020 to over 5 billion by 2050. So smart metering, smart HVAC systems offer a solution to one of the most negative effects of these secular global trends. COVID-19. The global pandemic is well into its second year. Many of the changes it imposes will be long-lasting, and that means that they will have a lasting effect on how infrastructure services are offered. Social infrastructure, for example, is expected to see a drastic change in its operating model as remote healthcare and education remain essential, and broadband networks must be sufficient to handle the massively increased demands of remote work. Climate. Recent debates have centered on the merits of green or climate-friendly infrastructure, cutting-edge technologies such as wind turbines and solar farms, for example. I think it's another false distinction. All forms of infrastructure, even the most conventional roads and bridges, have a climate impact, and all of them can and must be greener. The fundamental need is not for discrete technologies, but for a transformation of industrial processes and the greening of all infrastructure. The industrial sector by itself accounts for 23% of US carbon emissions. Some in the recent past have argued against windmills in favor of roads, bridges, and tunnels. But roads are made of bitumen, a petroleum product. Concrete is one of the most water and resource-intensive materials. Steel is forged by burning coal. Every road or bridge, even if it's filled with electric vehicles, has a massive carbon footprint if built with conventional materials. Technology offers answers. Alternative materials and processes exist. Roads can be surfaced with bitumen mixed with recycled plastic. Novel forms of concrete are capable of storing carbon. Steel can be produced using carbon capture technologies. The energy industry is making progress towards green hydrogen as an energy source. though more progress, of course, must be made for hydrogen production to truly be clean. Next, complexity and vulnerability. So finally, there's the inherent vulnerability of complex systems to other factors, such as cyber attack, and to their own unpredictability, unless protective technologies are deployed. In May of this year, a ransomware attack shut down the Colonial Pipeline in the US and crippled fuel delivery to the US Southeast and Mid-Atlantic. The US East Coast was without 45% of its gasoline and jet fuel supply for one whole week. Cybersecurity protections in much of our infrastructure are inadequate as a result of chronic underinvestment, and for the same reason, operational technology, OT solutions, often lack the necessary redundancy. I've recently invested in an operational technology OT cybersecurity company that helps customers reveal, protect, and manage their connected physical infrastructure assets. In January of this year, a massive failure of the Texas power grid caused by underinvestment as well as weather, inadequate winterization, and unfortunately poor policy decision left 4.5 million homes without power for days, killed 151 people, and caused property damages in excess of $190 billion. A smart, modern, resilient grid would not have mitigated all the damage, but it would have greatly reduced the impact of the outage, shortened its duration, and greatly lessened the suffering. Just this month, Hurricane Ida, the second most damaging hurricane in the US history, gave us another lesson in the fragility of our infrastructure and the need for technology to improve the resiliency of the grid system. In the face of all these stresses, the challenge, which our finalists today are working so hard to meet, is to match the technology to the task and ensure that it's integral to infrastructure. How do we make that happen? The answer is to close the massive infrastructure funding gap I spoke of earlier. While government initiatives such as the infrastructure legislation currently making its way through the US Congress will be no doubt a huge boost, the hard truth is that the spending levels proposed here and elsewhere in the world are simply not adequate to the need. Governments around the world will simply not be able to fund all the infrastructure they need or to support the R&D needed to introduce technology to infrastructure. So I'll close by sharing with you my conviction that the private sector must rise to the occasion and close the gap, and that mechanisms must be created to allow that to happen. The private sector is both able and willing to invest. From an investor's perspective, technology will make infrastructure assets more efficient and more critical to economic growth. That means investing in green technology-led infrastructure in addition to hard asset infrastructure. Those who don't will find themselves owning stranded assets sooner than one thinks. The capital is there. There is over $40 trillion in the global pension system and the private capital markets. Individual investors are capable of investing still more. For example, I've suggested the creation of special savings accounts for US households that could raise as much as $400 billion a year dedicated to long-term infrastructure investments. This private funding is not subject to the uncertainty associated with government funding, but barriers must be removed and vehicles must be created to allow this to happen. My message to you today is about the need for innovation, both in infrastructure technology and infrastructure funding. Our needs are great, but time is short. I hope that through initiatives such as the G20 InfraChallenge and through needed policy measures, we can turbocharge infrastructure development throughout the globe. And now, like you, I'm excited to meet our finalists and find out who our winner will be. The best of luck to all the contestants, and to all of you, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Sadek, for this very inspiring keynote, connecting the dots between what government should do, the private sector, but also what innovation could really do in really solving that gap and future-proofing our infrastructure to really help us to develop all of this outcomes in terms of environment, social, and resilience, and particularly also governance. So big thank you to you. And then before we announce the winner, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the top 10's journey that began with the closure of InfraChallenge application in March 2021. From a competitive field representing more than 30 countries, the top 20 teams were selected and completed a 6-week mentoring program to build out their idea and pitch for a place in the top 10. Pitching on a global stage at the final today is an accomplishment in its own right. And I really would like to commend the top 10 for their solutions, innovation, and most importantly, passion. And I also like to take a moment to thank our partners for supporting the InfraChallenge, in particular the Italian G20 Presidency for supporting the competition. I also like to thank the 20 mentors who provided the teams with invaluable advice, and also my fellow tonight's judge for their expertise in deciding the winner. So lastly, thank you to the GRHub team, because there is a lot of work in the background, and in particular to the InfraChallenge project lead, Jordana Beatty, for very hard work. And with that, it is now a great pleasure to announce that we have made a decision on the winner of InfraChallenge 2021. And to be very honest, last year I was also a judge, and this year was even more complicated as a decision. There was a lot of very good ideas. I know there will be a lot of follow-ups. So definitely not an easy choice. And after those deliberations, we have come with a decision. So the winner of InfraChallenge 2021 is IRIS for the AI solution for infrastructure maintenance to bring more resilience. The winner, and I could see their big smile out there, will receive 50,000 Australian dollars and support to take their solution to the next level, as well as exposure to a global audience of infrastructure decision makers. That includes the G20 Infrastructure Working Group. And the next meeting will actually take place on the 28th and 29th of September. So congratulations to Emil Sylvester Ramos, whom I'd now like to invite to say a few words. Emil, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Marie. And this speech is coming from David and I. We want to thank you so much for this award. It has been a fantastic journey these past few months with our mentors and advisors from the Global Infrastructure Hub here in Toronto, Canada, Sydney, Australia, and the InfraChallenge initiative hosted by the Italian Presidency and supported by G20 member countries. Starting a company and building something truly impactful in highly regulated markets intertwined with government is a daunting task. And we cannot do it alone. It takes a community of thought leaders, innovation champions, and industry experts who are willing to challenge the status quo and light the spark that will drive meaningful change. That is what this challenge empowered IRIS to do. Our time with InfraChallenge helped us identify the what then, beyond developing technology. How do we develop AI-enabled infrastructure technologies that lessen the digital divide, provide infrastructure transparency in emerging countries, and serve as the backbone of data-driven infrastructure policymaking that truly enable our services, goods, and communities to get from point A to point B faster, smarter, and safer than ever before, ensuring that no one is left behind in accessing the benefits of infrastructure projects as we all go forward from COVID-19. Our outlook here at IRIS is very promising, and we're very excited to scale globally with our municipal clients, our strategic investors, our mentors, and the Global Infra Hub team, who are all passionate in ensuring that the infrastructure we invest in today will fit the needs of the present and future generations. David, Michelle, Hasib, Kevin, and the rest of the IRIS team, I want you to know that you are the reason why I'm standing here today, and be proud of all the work that you guys have done this year. To everyone here with us today, thank you for letting us celebrate this global effort with you as we all improve the lives of the people around the world who, just like us, depend on reliable and sustainable and resilient infrastructure to move forward. Thank you so much.
And let me just add, congratulations to the other 9 finalists. I mean, you all had fantastic solutions and technology. Must have been a really hard decision, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emil. Thank you very much, David, and congratulations again. And as David very kindly said, congratulations also to all of our 9 finalists, because that was, as I said, a very harsh competition this year. So I'd now like to hand over to Laura from the G20 for a brief an update for the winner.
Thank you, Marie, and congratulations, of course. Yeah, I just would like to say a few words because we would like to invite the winner of the competition at the next IWG meeting of the G20 that will take place on September 28 and 29. On September 29, we will have a dedicated session on InfraChallenge, and we would like to invite you to do a very short presentation on your work. Most probably, you will participate in a virtual mode, but it will be very, very interesting to listen to your work, and I would like to invite you to join this session of the meeting. Of course, then we will give you more details also through the GI app and through our logistic team.
Thank you so much, Laura. And that's actually the continuation of your journey with the presentation in front of the G20. It's in 10 days, so no pressure at all. So this brings us to the end of the InfraChallenge 2021. I hope you really enjoyed the presentation and, as I said, the passion of all of those teams. If you'd like to find out more about the winner and the top 10 solution, listen to our podcast, which has been hosted by Director of Thought Leadership, Monica Bennett, on innovating infrastructure, and it's on gihub.org. So thanks again, all of you, for attending, and have a good day wherever you are, and stay safe. Bye.